Hello, and thank you so much for joining us. My name is Cedric Bailey, and I tell you what, the month of June is here, and we are getting ready for, of course, Juneteenth. Last year, I had the opportunity, I was invited by this man, Mr. Jared Howard, along with Bishop Kenneth Spears of the First St. John Baptist Church, and we had a chance to go to the Fort Worth Petroleum Club. I believe that's where we were. Jared, how are you doing? Am I telling that right, my brother?
I am well, Cedric, and you are saying it absolutely accurate as you most usually do.
Well, what's going on, 06? How you doing, brother?
Fred, I'm doing well, man. I'm grinding. I'm scratching and clawing and kicking and screaming to get this thing done, but I cannot complain. I believe I'm called to the moment, and so I'm walking in the calling, bro, but I'm doing well. How about you?
I'm doing all right, man. I'm very excited, and I've been thinking about history and everything, especially from an African-American perspective, and it goes back to 1619. You know, when you think about when our history tells us African-Americans were brought over here in ships and became slaves, and then they served for a long time, and in 1863, Emancipation Proclamation, we're supposed to be free. We didn't have no cell phones. We have no technology to tell us. And the word didn't get to Galveston, Texas till 2 years later. And so here we are with Juneteenth, man. I'd love to hear from you about what this Juneteenth means to you, and talk to us about what you're working on, Brother Jared.
Well, first and foremost, let me say thank you to you and your team for having me. I know that there are a lot more important and probably a few better looking people than myself that you could have on your show. But I do appreciate you having me here and for the relationship that we've enjoyed for a number of years. You know, Juneteenth to me is significant in a number of ways, not the least of which is the fact that I grew up in Fort Worth. And for as long as I can remember, we here in Fort Worth have celebrated Juneteenth. And those celebrations have generally been led by this 96-year-old woman that walks around in sneakers, getting in everybody's business, and her name is Miss Opal Lee. You may have heard of her a time or two before. And so to that extent, you know, for as long as I can recall, Juneteenth has been significant in Fort Worth and throughout the state of Texas. But over the last couple of years, as you are aware, the nation has become more aware of what Juneteenth is, what it symbolizes, what it signifies. And for that, I'm incredibly grateful, because it's such a celebratory occasion that people across the nation need to be aware of it. And they can't help but be aware of it by virtue of the fact that it's a national holiday. So I'm really excited about that. It is a byproduct of a lot of the work that's gone on before myself, and as part of an effort to make sure that history accurately reflects the facts. We are erecting a National Juneteenth Museum right here in Fort Worth, and I can't even tell you how excited about that I am.
All right, well, we're going to go to the website here in a few minutes, but when you look up, I mean, first of all, you got the New York Times that was able to come on in here, and there's the logo. If you're looking at our screen, you see it right there. They recently did a story, and they talked about how National Juneteenth Museum takes place in Fort Worth. It is the brainchild of Miss Opal Lee. And by the way, she's on the road. I've talked to Dion earlier, and they said she's in Philadelphia. This woman is the whole schedule is crazy for her, so she's everywhere. You know what I mean?
I do.
Yeah. So
Absolutely.
here we are. We're looking at this picture right here, and we'll give you the website so you can go. But you can see this building with these different logos on it, like shotgun houses. Is that right, Jared?
You got it, Cedric. We due to the benevolence of some really good people here in Fort Worth, we were able to partner with one of the world's most renowned architecture firms. It's called the Bjarke Ingels Group, and they're based out of New York. And to be sure, we have a couple of affinities for this project. To the extent that it makes sense for us, we want to partner with Black and local firms, right? Well, obviously, Bjarke Ingels is not Black. He's a Danish man, but the senior partner in his firm, one of the senior partners in his firms, happens to be a guy named Douglas Allagood. To be sure, you're looking at the New York Times article, and if I'm not mistaken, that article actually mentions and interviews Douglas, and there are a couple of quotes from him. And so we've talked to them, and their team of experts got together, and they wanted to build or direct or develop and design a development that was reminiscent of the history of the neighborhood and reflective of the significance of Juneteenth. And so when you look at the building, if you look at the exterior, as you mentioned, it looks like a confluence of shotgun homes adjacent to each other, right? That's reflective of the homes in the neighborhood. If you rewind the clock here in Fort Worth, 50, 60, 75 years in that neighborhood where we're building the project, you will see lots of those types of homes with gabled roof lines. And so that's reflective in the development. And if you look at the center of the development, you'll see a figure carved out in the roof that is actually the Juneteenth star. And so the confluence of the Juneteenth star and the symbolism that's represented there, along with the significant history of the neighborhood and the gabled roof lines of the shotgun homes, both of them are reflected in the building that you're looking at right now.
I love the sunroof that's available that's going to be coming down through there. It's like God looking down himself. You remember being a football fan, you know what stadium, I can't say it, but they had a hole in the roof there at Texas Stadium. But you know what I'm trying to say. But let's look at this picture right here.
Yep.
That area, you know, there's a church that's located next door to it.
Yeah.
My friend of mine, Reverend Neely, Carl McNeely, is the pastor there. But that is Evans Avenue, right? In Rosedale?
Rosedale and Evans. And Rosedale and Evans, Cedric, if you're not familiar with the area, that happens to be the epicenter of the historic South Side neighborhood. And the historic South Side is to Fort Worth what Third Ward is to Houston, what the U Streets is to Washington, D.C., what Sweet Auburn is to Atlanta. When African Americans planted their flag in Fort Worth, this is the neighborhood in which they did it. And so from an historic perspective, from an economic perspective, from a cultural perspective, this is the absolute right place to do this, specifically because up until about 2 months ago, the building that you're looking at right now, which is the former Juneteenth Museum that has been there for a couple of decades, Miss Opal erected, Miss Opal actually designed and curated. That was there. We had the opportunity to demolish it a couple of months ago, and that is the place where we're going to put a shovel in the ground and build the new National Juneteenth Museum. So what better place, right, than on the corner of Rosedale and Evans?
Well, we got this picture of Miss Opal here. And for those people that know, man, she made the finalists for the Nobel Peace Prize.
She did.
Are you kidding me?
She did. And was a little bit frustrated that she didn't win.
Man, y'all got up and went to Paris Coffee House, what, at 3 or 4 in the morning?
We got there at 2:30 in the morning because it was happening overseas. And so we wanted to be live, and we had news crews and a bunch of media types. Everybody was in the building waiting to see if Miss Opal would win the award. While we were, there was some level of disappointment. We were not dismayed, right? I think we all understand the value of an Opal Lee, right? It's evident by the fact that when President Biden signed the bill into law, she's the person that he invited to be at his desk, right? And to be quite frank with you, President Biden was one of our first donors to the museum. He's actually a supporter of our museum project. Wow.
So far, you've been able to raise some funding, but it's going to take $70 million. Is that correct?
Yep. It's going to take $70 million to make this happen. And $70 million, while it is, a big number, we're not deterred by it. We're not intimidated by it because, we're building billion-dollar stadiums in our neighborhoods, right? And this is a $70 million project that will have a great deal more impact than just having a nice building in a neighborhood. I talked to you before about the cultural and social and economic significance about this. One of the things that I hope we'll talk about before we jump off is the fact that it's not just the museum. There are a whole other components associated with this development that the world needs to know about and that we're developing while we build this museum. So it's not just the museum. Quite frankly, it's more than a museum.
I'm glad you said that, Jared. Now I'm going to go to my screen here. As you see right here, that is right down the road from where I live here in Oklahoma.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
When Andrew Jackson was president of the United States of America, they had this migration move, and they told all the Indians, y'all got to leave. And they had what they call the Trail of Tears. So we had the 5 civilized tribes. And in Mississippi is where the Indians from that area came here to this area. and you have the Choctaw Nation and you have the Chickasaw Nations. They're two brothers, okay? So they had to make that migration. And I'm gonna see if I can pull up that picture of that wall. And as you see right there, the Cherokee Indian right there, and that's Dion and Miss Opal here in Carter County here in the Chickasaw Nation. And that's my family there outside the mural, which is here in Ardmore. But here it is right here. As you see that they had to travel by wagon and walk and come here up under these conditions and come here. And that's her with Miss Mary Johnson, who is an educator, and they're Zetas, and they have books and everything like that. But you know, looking at this Trail of Tears, they had to come. So from my understanding, Miss Opal wants to tell the story of what happened with African Americans and Indians, because African Americans were slaves to the Indians back in the day.
Absolutely.
So you guys have a segment that's going to be a part of that museum as well, right?
Yeah, the Juneteenth story is not as simple as people want to make it. It is more than just what happened on June 19th, 1865. There were a series of events that happened prior to, and another series of events that happened after that, all of which are mainly untold or certainly unknown. And so that's a part of the narrative that we intend to tell with the museum and the exhibitions inside the museum.
And Jared, what's so interesting is we already had Indian tribes that were here. The Sac and the Fox and the Potawatomi Nation that was here. These were Indians that were located in this part of the country. It started off as Indian territory. Then they split it. The northern part was Oklahoma territory, and then the bottom part was Indian territory. And it's just a lot of history. So Miss Opal is determined to tell the story in this museum. When people come in here, from my understanding, for what I've seen, you guys are going to have all kinds of areas. It's going to be like a cafe. I mean, talk to me, man, because I got to go to the website. Give out that website too as well.
Well, first and foremost, the website is nationaljuneteenthmuseum.org, www.nationaljuneteenthmuseum.org. An easier way to get there is www.thenjm.org. Either way, you'll get to the same place. And yes, you're absolutely right. As I mentioned, there's more than just a museum. You know, while we are excited about having a national museum in Fort Worth, or this national museum in Fort Worth, and while we're excited about what a museum can do for a neighborhood, the people, the stewards of the neighborhood, recognize that they need more than just a museum. So as a consequence, inside the scope of this museum, we're going to have a food hall, right? And this food hall will have 6 vending spaces for local foodpreneurs, food entrepreneurs, right, to hone their craft and to build a brand for themselves. And so there's a double benefit, there's a double-edged sword there, because the people curating the food and crafting the food will have people to sell it to. Likewise, the people in the neighborhood won't have to go outside of the neighborhood like they do right now to go somewhere and sit down and have a meal. So we're really excited about that, Cedric. As you are aware, this neighborhood used to be rich with culture, and food is a part of the culture. In fact, adjacent to where we're building is the building that was formerly known as Drake's Cafeteria, which in Fort Worth is a legendary food establishment that was around in the 60s and 70s. And I grew up, I'm not going to age myself, I'm not telling you how old I am, but I'm old enough to remember Drake's Cafeteria. Well, there are no more Drake's Cafeteria. There are some restaurants in the neighborhood, but they've got a really small footprint. My friend Derek Walker and his wife Keisha have an establishment a couple of blocks away from where we are, but you can't go there and sit down. You have to take the food to go. So we'll have a space for 6 food vendors to come and sit there, and so the people can come and take their choice of cuisines, right? In addition to that, we'll have a business incubator so people with skills and crafts can come and understand the resources that they need to become entrepreneurs. We'll have some co-working space there. We will also have a 250-seat theater in the development, right? And so a theater is important because what people may not know, Said, I know you do, is that there are some world-renowned people that are from Fort Worth. I'll name one. I'll name a couple, right? Ornette Coleman, Dewey Redmond, Kirk Franklin, Leon Bridges, David Mann, Tamala Mann, Cameron Hall, right? Cody Oliver, who happens to be the producer, writer, and director of a show called Black Love on the Oprah Winfrey Network. She's a Fort Worthian, right? And so there's a myriad of people that are from Fort Worth that unfortunately had to go outside of their neighborhoods, and in many instances outside of the city, to hone their craft. Right. And that's a shame that a city the size of Fort Worth, which is the country's 12th largest city, right, doesn't have a place for people like those ones that I just named, or hasn't had a place for those people to come and build their brands. Well, that will change here. We'll also have some retail, and at the crux of everything that I'm telling you will be culture, right? So we are unapologetic about promoting the type of culture, the Black culture, the African American culture, because everybody else is unapologetic about their culture, as they should be, right? And a city like Fort Worth is only as great as it is representative of the people that live there. And unfortunately, when you come to Fort Worth, there aren't a lot of places where you can go and consume Black culture. Well, this will be it. And here's the reality, said, while we're emanating Black culture and promoting and creating and crafting Black culture, it's not exclusively for Black people, right? We want everybody, short, tall, white, brown, green, purple, yellow, to come and enjoy. Here's the reality, Cedric. When you've been in New York City a number of times, and there are places in New York City like Little Italy, where the whole cultural footprint is Italian. But when you go to Little Italy, you don't just see Italian people. You see everybody there. The same is true in Chinatown. The same is true in Harlem. When you go to those places which are wrought with certain cultures, everybody is there. And the same is going to be true here. So we're really excited about this. And the last couple of components that I'll tell you about, and I'll shut up, are some retail, right? You don't have a development like this without having some retail on the footprint, and then residential. What we hope will happen, in fact, what we're bullishly convinced will happen, is once we erect this project, it'll be catalytic to people coming back, not only to play on the historic South Side, but to live on the historic South Side. All of that is happening on one campus under one roof, and we're really excited about this. Not under one roof, we'll have a couple of buildings as a part of the campus, but on one complex.
I'm going to share the screen again, and I'm on the website, and I'm looking at this right now, and I'm on the website. Man. And I'm going to minimize this right quick, but look at this right quick, folks. This is it right here. That is beautiful right there. You got a vision where the people be able to come in there. You got your umbrellas. You got the research. You even got a big screen in there to watch your team.
We'll have a number of big screens. It won't just be one. That big screen image is the food hall. If you look at the screen, you'll see that there are tables and food vending spaces around. Well, you don't come to a place on Sunday afternoon and not be able to watch the Cowboys game. So we'll have a number of big screens. It will not be a sports bar, but those screens allow us to do things like promote other events that are happening in and around the city and the neighborhood, right? You can come and maybe it's not a game that you want to watch, but maybe it's election night, right? Or some other thing that's happening, the Olympics or whatever the case be. We'll be able to convene and corral people to come to this place and enjoy their food and maybe a nice glass of wine or a cup of coffee or whatever the case be, while taking in whatever it is that's happening in the mainstream.
It says get involved. I'm going to go to that link right now. What am I looking at right now when I see where it says get involved?
Yeah, there are a couple of ways that people can get involved, and you see them on the screen right now. First and foremost, you can certainly donate. We've got to raise $70 million, and we certainly need everything from $6.19 to $61.9 million and everything in between. That's the first thing. Certainly, there are volunteer opportunities associated with the work that we're doing. We recognize as a team that we can't do it all on our own and by ourselves. And so we welcome people to come and join the initiative and to join the effort. And there are a number of ways that you can do that. And then, of course, the third thing is we're always looking for artifacts. So while much of the exhibition space will be predicated on and designed around technology, we intend to leverage technology here because you can change the messaging with technology, whereas with artifacts, it's difficult to do that. But we will have some artifacts as a part of the museum, and we're really excited about that. So those are just a couple of the ways that people can come and join our team and join the movement, as you see on your screen.
I'm looking at it, and that looks good, and you can get updates and everything. What is it? I see Amon G. Carter Foundation, Meta, North Texas Community Foundation, Frito-Lay. You got some people already that's made a commitment toward this project.
Yeah, all of those organizations that you see, and more than what's there. If you go, you'll probably see several others. You will see some others, but yes, all of the organizations reflected on your screen right now have supported us already. And this is without a large push nationally, right? So what I've discovered, Cedric, is when you're raising money, that it's important. In fact, it's paramount that your home base expresses its support for the work that you're doing before you can expect for anybody else to do so. And what you saw reflected on your screen is evidence of the fact that our home base is supporting what we're doing, whether it's the charitable foundations or companies like Frito-Lay and PepsiCo. Meta, that's a big win for us. In fact, we've got a video coming out that Meta's going to produce for us. and they're our digital partners. So we intend to leverage every outlet that we possibly can to make sure that the museum that we develop and the project that we develop for the people is reflective of the spirit of the people trying to make it happen.
What's coming up on June 15th? And I'll just click this link right quick and tell us about what's going to be happening at I Am Terrell Academy for STEM. And Brian Stevenson, tell us about him.
Fred, I am incredibly excited about this because we have the inimitable Brian Stevenson, who is the subject of the movie and the book Just Mercy. For the folks that are watching, they might remember Brian Stevenson because the venerable Michael B. Jordan actually played Brian Stevenson in the movie opposite Jamie Foxx. And so Brian Stevenson, who is a thought leader in every sense of the word, is coming to be a guest at our inaugural speaker series event, right? And I will tell you, we are going to have some world-renowned, not just nationally renowned, but world-renowned figures as a part of our speaker series coming to Fort Worth and causing people to converge on Fort Worth. And all we're going to do is narrate, right? We're going to have a conversation around facts and around truth and around thought leadership and about how we can make the world and our city and our neighborhoods better. And who better to start that with than the incredible Brian Stevenson? And he's a major win for us. I got to tell you, some people from some other cities, large cities, have been trying to get Brian Stevenson to come to their city, and they weren't able to do so. So we're incredibly blessed to be able to have him. And I am busting at the seams with excitement, because in the words of the younger people than myself, it's going to be dope.
Man, listen, and it's $25 to $100 for a ticket. I mean, even if you can't go, you can still go to this website and maybe you could sponsor somebody to go. And I want to tell you something. You called out some names of some people all ago. We can't forget about Lenora Rollins,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And Miss Hazel Harvey.
Hazel Harvey Peace. Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
And
anybody who's been around Fort Worth any significant amount of time knows that there are trailblazers like the ones you just named. In fact, Miss Opal calls Lenora Rolla her mentor.
Yeah.
So for that which we love and appreciate about Miss Opal, it was created and curated, if you will, by Lenora Rolla, right? Yeah. Hazel Harvey Peace, people like William Madison McDonald, who was Texas's first Black millionaire. Right, people like Viola Pitts, who was the mayor. The names are endless, brother.
Yeah, it's Como, Fort Worth. You can't go to Fort Worth without going to a course over there. 4th of July, you might as well forget about it. Trying to go down there.
Absolutely right.
You see the Cowboys, right. You see all the cars. It ain't nothing like being at a party in Como and Fort Worth on the west side. Hey, but listen, where's one young man I got to say from Fort Worth. And that's Jill Darden's son. That Giles Darden, that's a bad boy. He is going to be the future before,
Yep. The Jill has done, and her family have done an incredible job of raising Giles. And he is the embodiment of everything that Jill's been doing for the last couple of decades in and around Fort Worth. Jill has been in the media space bullishly committed to Fort Worth and continues to be. And so what you see in Giles is simply the manifestation of the work that Jill's been doing for a very long time. And you're absolutely right. He is the future indeed.
He definitely is. He's doing a phenomenal job. His mother is a writer for the Fort Worth Black News. So she's right there. We saw her start the paper from just going out there on her own, and look where she is now, up under her mother who passed away, Miss Chris. So there's a lot of history in Fort Worth. So shout out to her. But then I'm going to do this for you and your lovely wife, Lauren. You have a son who went to school in Fort Worth. He was a swimmer. He went to Prairie View. And then you got your daughter who just graduated. So toot your own horn about your kids and what they're doing, and tell everybody their names, if you would, brother.
I mean, my kids are Jared II and Layla, and they are, don't tell them I said this, but they're pretty incredible in their own right. My son, Jared, who, as you mentioned, graduated locally and then went off to Prairie View. Now he's building an equestrian center. Said, I have no clue where this dude found the love of horses, because they intimidate me. But Jared calls himself the concrete cowboy. And if you see him, he's probably going to have a 10-gallon cowboy hat on and some boots to go with it. And he's really talented in that space, and he's really passionate about it. And I'm excited and thrilled that at such a young age, he's found his passion. So while I might have wanted him to be a particular thing, I recognize that the best thing for me to be is supportive of what he wants to be. Right. Yeah. And so he's making a name for himself in that space. The dude has a $20,000 trailer. Now, where he got the money from to buy it, I have no clue, right? But that's how passionate he is about that work. And then my daughter, who, as you mentioned, just graduated here locally in 2022. Now she's a student at my alma mater, which is the University of North Texas. And she's a business major. She hadn't determined which track she's going to take yet, but I'll tell you, you talk about tooting your own horn. My daughter is the newest member of the President's Club.
Wow.
May not be aware, the President's Club are those people that have not a 3.8 or 3.9, but a 4.0 GPA. And she's absolutely killing the game. And I'm really excited about the work that she's doing. She's developing and finding herself and finding her space. So my kids are doing really, really well. Lauren and I put we put a premium on making sure that our kids had exposure and resources and access, right? Some of the things that we didn't have when we were growing up. And I think while I can't take credit for who they are, that's the Lord's doing. And I certainly take his credit. I will say that Lauren and I both put a lot of work into making sure that our kids had opportunities, right? And they're taking advantage of them. And I'm really excited about that.
I saw you looking up to Jared the second now, because you're 6'1" and how tall is he?
Yeah, I'm 6'1". That joker's every bit of 6'4". He says he's 6'5". I think he's 6'4", though. We argue about that all the time. Whatever the case be, he's taller than I am. But I still hit him in the chest if I need to. Let's be clear about that.
Well, you just keep him away from Miss Maureen and Rolling, and you're all right. Not just yeah. And that's your safety. Both of those great women too, as well. Talk about your mother too, and then your mother-in-law, man.
Yeah. Interestingly enough, both Lauren and I were raised by single parents, and in both cases, it was our moms. And our moms are, to a large degree, responsible for who we are. And we take a great deal of pride in our faith and a great deal of pride in our character and being people of integrity. And that is the absolute byproduct of the work that our parents and the grandparents and our villages did. And certainly you were a part of Lauren's village. You were a member, a longtime member, and a leader at the Golden Gate Church, which is where she grew up. And so all of that work that you all planted into us, we hope is producing seed, and not just seed, but seed that you all are proud to see the fruit of. So yeah, we take our upbringing and our lineage pretty seriously.
All right. Thank you so much, brother, for sharing that. So I want to close out, and you did say something earlier. I remember going to Drake's Cafeteria right there. They had breakfast there, and they had the best soul food. But here's the thing and I had to say this, and I don't want to be negative in any kind of way. Here where I'm at in Oklahoma, I can look up and see Latinos and Hispanics. They can open up restaurants in a moment. But for us, we just can't seem to pull that off. And I pray that this museum will be the base and the foundation for someone that can establish a business and run it well. There are certain cafeterias in certain parts of the city. I don't want to really promote them, but I know when I go there around Thanksgiving, I look up and I see a line of them people standing out the door looking like us, waiting for an hour for some food and paying the price for it. And they're making a killing. And I'm saying to myself, why can't we do this? Here in Oklahoma, there was a lady by the name of Mayzola McCurson. She was our first African-American commissioner, and later became the mayor of the city. And she had a restaurant. It was called The Gourmet. You couldn't find a seat in that place on Sundays and on Friday nights. We was in there waiting tables. We were doing everything, and everybody was making some money. But when she passed away, her vision died. And the reason why we're talking about all these things is because we got to plant them, Jared, into our family, into our legacies to continue to go on. The funny thing about Miss Mayzola and her business is that there was some people that came to town in Oklahoma and went to her place. And, Lauren Green, who played in Bonanza, Mr. Cartwright, all the friends came in there, and there was this one family from Mississippi. The food was so good. And Miss McCurson would never, ever dress up as like the owner or the proprietor of the business. She was out there working and cooking. So the lady says to her, I would like to meet the woman or the owner for this establishment. So she came right back off, took her apron on and said, that is me. And that lady's mouth flew wide open. So why can't we do these things, Jared? Why can't we support this museum? You get the closing comment, sir.
Yeah, well, I concur with your sentiments, and I think we can, and I think we will, quite frankly. But thank you again, Cedric, for all of your support, not just now, but through the years. We've known each other for a number of years, decades, to be sure. I know you to be a man of integrity, and I also know you have a platform that you don't have to use for people like myself. So thank you for that. And so to those watching, we really need your support. And I mentioned the myriad of ways that you can support. I hope that Fort Worth and Dallas will come and see Brian Stevenson on June 15th. You can go to our website and learn more about that. But beyond that, if you've got, $1 or $2 and you want to support the initiative, by all means, log onto the website and click donate now, right? And even for those people that may not have any money, might not have the ability to volunteer, right? Might not be able to come and see Brian Stevenson. If you're people of faith, then I invite you to join us in prayer. Because the reality is, if this is going to get done, it's going to take the hand of God to make it happen. And so as a consequence to those people that will petition heaven on our behalf to make sure that this thing is reflective of the God that gave us the vision and the glory that he represents.
I forgot the city of Fort Worth, whatever they stepped up to say, the commitment, what is the city of Fort Worth going to do, Jared?
Oh man, the city of Fort Worth has been an incredible partner for us. In fact, the city of Fort Worth was one of our early donors, and they have donated they have made a commitment of $15 million. Wow. Right? So the city of Fort Worth is not just supportive in words, they're actually supportive in deed. And as a consequence, we want to make sure that what we do, what you may not know, what your listeners and watchers may not know, is that Fort Worth is a mecca for museums. And we would do the city of Fort Worth a great disservice if the museum that we are curating and developing is not commensurate with the other ones in the city, like the Science and History, the Kimball, and the Amon Carter, and the Modern in Fort Worth, and even our friend Jim Austin's museum, right? There are some incredible museums in and around Fort Worth, and we want to be counted amongst that number for you church folk out there.
All right. If you just joined us, remember now, you can go to the website. It's National Juneteenth Museum.org. And
right.
Coming up is going to be on Thursday, June 15th. You can go online and go there right now so that you can see this speaker. And by the way, thank you to Bank of America as they present Uniting of Voices. And this is going to be on Thursday, June 15th at I Am Terrell Academy for STEM and Visual Performing Arts. And I got to say thank you to Fort Worth ISD, because I Am Terrell was the historic the historic high school for African-Americans where they went to school. Can you imagine people from Arlington and Grand Prairie going right past all them schools and having just to go to I Am Terrell in downtown Fort Worth, east of Fort Worth? And they even came from Weatherford, Texas, man.
Right.
Just to go to school here.
I Am Terrell, as you know, Cedric, was originally called the Fort Worth School for Colored Children, right? And then Isaiah Milligan Terrell became the principal, and then they aptly named the school after him. But I Am Terrell is significant in a number of ways, not the least of which is it's Miss Opal's alma mater. And people like Commissioner Roy Brooks and all those Brooks folks, they all graduated from I Am Terrell. So to have it there is really full circle, and I'm really excited about that. And I'm glad you mentioned it, Cedric. If you'll give me the latitude for 10 seconds to say thank you to Bank of America. Bank of America has been an incredible partner for us. In fact, we intend to partner with them in a larger way as we go forward. But this doesn't happen without companies like Bank of America supporting. So we're really thrilled to have them as a partner.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have been speaking to Mr. Jared Howard, and I pray that you'll be able to go to the website. Most of all, pray. If it ain't nothing but, let's just say, for example, if we had at least 100 churches that took an offering on that Sunday, especially the week of, because that's June 18th, on that Sunday. You just gave me an idea. On that Sunday, take up an offering and go ahead and say, we want to support this to the museum. Just think if we had at least 100 churches that would do that. And then on that Monday, it's June 19th, Father's Day weekend.
Yeah.
Why not do that? Yeah. I'm done. I don't even say nothing else. I pray that something special will happen, and I can't wait to be a part of this project when it comes together, Brother Howard. Thank you so much. You got to say the final word. I'm done. I don't want to say nothing else. Go ahead, brother. Close it out.
Right. Thank you again, Cedric. Thank you to your watchers and to your viewers, and we look forward to working with you and to building. I'll make a quick vow publicly. We, myself and our board and our staff, we've got two things that we're committing to. We commit to being a good steward of your gifts. That's first and foremost. And then we commit to building a project, a museum that you're proud to have been a supporter of. And so those are our two vows. With that, thank you much. This is Jared Howard signing off for the incredible Cedric Bailey. See you all next time.
And I'm moving out the way so everybody can see the Juneteenth flag. That's the logo behind my head. You can order that flag and post it up. Thank you so much, Brother Howard.
Thank you.